I've seen enough now that I don't really care what happens to me. If they find me, fine. But if even one of you reads this and understands what's going on, then I've done more than they ever could by burying it. I hacked a server I wasn't supposed to even know existed. Government level, deep web protocols, and keys rotating every 20 minutes, buried under 7 layers of decoy systems. That's not important. What matters is what I pulled from it. It was a mission log. Internal, time-stamped, partially redacted, called Operation Wanderer. Never heard of it before. It's not public and probably never will be, unless more people like me dig it out. This is what it said. Operation Wanderer, date January 5th, 2025, location redacted, classification, Omega clearance only. Objective, contain or terminate non-terrestrial biological entities, NTBEs. Preserve cover integrity. Mission brief. 3 days ago, multiple residents of an urban apartment block in Redacted reported screaming meat and skinless monsters. Initial responders were civilian police. Contact lost shortly after. A military recon team was deployed under emergency protocol. Visuals confirmed the presence of foreign biological entities, termed NTBEs in the report. The origin, they called it Nibiru. I don't know what the hell that was at first, so I looked it up. Apparently it's a supposed rogue planet, orbit unstable, theoretical. Ancient Sumerians mentioned it. Conspiracy people latched on. But the report said it wasn't a theory, it's real. It's out there, way past Pluto, barely detectable, and things live on it. Or maybe in it. These things aren't your little green men, not even close. The team sent in was 6 soldiers, fully armed, trained in what they called post-2022 biohazard protocol. That's the only hint I got about what changed in 2022. Something happened that opened their eyes to stuff they used to laugh at. The building had already been quarantined. A cover story was put out, gas leak, standard, but people had seen enough by then. Whole Reddit threads vanished. News stations rolled back stories, said it was a hoax. You know how it goes. First contact was on the 7th floor, one of the apartments, and they breached the door after seeing blood under it. What they found inside was... I'm just going to quote it. Entity A, amorphous, composed of exposed flesh and pulsating muscle, estimated 9 foot in resting diameter, multiple thin appendages resembling tentacles extended from core mass, movement erratic, no discernible sensory organs, emits wet, gurgling vocalizations. They tried to communicate. That was protocol. Don't ask me why. Maybe they thought it could understand, or maybe they were stalling. But Entity A didn't respond. Then it moved. 2 of the soldiers were dead in 5 seconds. The report says the thing sprouted claws from the end of the tentacles and pierced straight through body armor. One of the survivors said it moved like it was testing them, like it was figuring out how they worked while it was killing them. Here's where it gets worse. The entity didn't just kill. It entered one of them, crawled into the chest cavity. They said it wore the body like a disguise and puppeting it from the inside. When backup arrived, they almost shot the 3rd soldier by mistake because the thing talked through the dead one's face. Used the vocal cords. That's when they called in the specialized team. Not normal military, no insignia, full body armor, face plates, different weapons, some kind of sonic rifle, heat-based rounds, stuff I'd never seen in public use. One of the files mentioned tech recovered from previous incidents, but the reference was scrubbed. They cleared the building, floor by floor. They weren't just dealing with Entity A, there were others, different types. One had pale gray skin stretched tight around a skeleton, almost human-looking except for the backwards legs and rows of small eyes circling the forehead. Another looked like a floating jellyfish, but with bones and human hands dangling underneath. They were feeding on the residents or studying them. It's hard to tell. The worst part was the kids' bedroom. That's where they found the original massive entity A, bigger than before, tentacles everywhere. The walls were coated in a slick pink film like meat that had melted into the drywall. The bed was half dissolved. The thing had grown, absorbed something. Maybe someone. One of the soldiers got too close, and the entity launched at him, but not just physically. It shut off the power when it moved, even electronics on backup systems, like it gave off some kind of field. Night vision stopped working. Everything went black, except for the red glow from the thing's core. And they killed it with fire. That's what the log says. Incendiary grenades, direct thermal exposure. Even then, it didn't die fast. They said it screamed, not like a noise, but like the entire room screamed. Vibrations in the walls, in their teeth. And once it stopped moving, they bagged whatever was left. Burned the apartment down. Claimed it was a meth lab explosion. Nobody questioned it. They never do. There were photos. I can't post them here. Not yet, at least. Too many identifiers, but if you could see them, there was nothing alien about how they bled. It was red, wet, messy. Just like us. And that's the part that stuck with me. They didn't come from space in a ship. They fell. Crashed, maybe. Escaped, more likely. Nibiru wasn't mentioned again after the opening file, but the name was burned into every document heading, as if it was the only word that mattered. There are 3 more logs tied to Operation Wanderer, but I only got this one before I triggered a response ping, and I had to run. But this is real. I swear on everything, something is out there, and some of it is already here. We're not dealing with UFOs and crop circles. These things don't want to talk. They don't want peace. They want us. Our bodies, our voices, our cities. And the ones in charge? They're trying to fight them without letting us know. Because if we knew, even for a second, we'd start looking up at the sky and asking the wrong questions. And just remember the name, Operation Wanderer. And if you ever walk into a room that smells like warm meat and you hear something wet dragging across the floor, don't run. It'll hear that. And don't hide. It already knows you're there. Just pray it's not hungry. As a kid, I remember watching the normal kids shows for kids my age. Bubble Guppies, Phineas and Ferb, Odd Squad. Even a few animes like Glitter Force. Normal, right? Well, I watched those mainly when me and my mom finally got our own place. But before we had our own place, we lived with my grandparents. Now, my grandparents had so many VHS tapes, mainly of old Disney movies, and some good stuff you can't find on Disney Plus, like The House of Mouse, VeggieTales, and some other old cartoons. I honestly loved watching these, because I felt so cool to use the old school method. My mother and grandfather worked all day, so it was just me, my grandma, her 3 dogs, and the grumpy cat. Most of the time, me and my grandmother would play cards and dice games, or work in her garden. But when my grandmother needed to get something done, she let me hang out in my room and watch those cartoons on this old TV. I honestly would just watch VeggieTales or Popeye, maybe Felix the Cat if I felt like rewatching the one tape we had of it, but there was one random set of tapes of some general cartoon show. It was about this group of siblings. I think there was around 7 of them living on this remote farmland by themselves. No parents or any adults, which as a kid I thought was cool. A kid me just thought about all the ice cream I could eat when alone. I remember that the oldest sibling was only being around 13 and the youngest being 3 to 2 years old. The show followed the content of a normal kids show. Episode starts, something happens, they fix the problem, lesson learned. Normal, right? But there were some weird things about it. Like I said, no parents for most episodes. They only showed up for one episode. I'll talk about that one later, just wait. But there was also other weird things. For example, there were 7 kids, right? I remember a few of their names, like Gabriel, Stacy, Megan, Christian, and that 3 to 2 year old being Micah. Surprisingly, the oldest, the 13-year-old, never got a name, only ever being called Big Sister. And the last kid was barely a focus in episodes that I never learned his name. Another thing I noticed is that they absolutely refused to speak about their parents. Like, I remember a one-off comment where Micah was asking Megan and Christian about their parents, and they quickly shushed him, telling him, "We're not allowed to talk about them. Big Sister said so." Which I found weird. Now, that episode I mentioned, the only one where the parents show up, yeah, that was the second to last episode, actually. It introduced a new character, an 8th sibling, and the only reason I remember her name is because it was literally the name of the show. Plain Baby Jane. The episode starts normally. The kids are doing some chores and playing when a car pulls up. It was a good car for animation standard. The parents stepped out in like the shiny clothes, shows draw characters and to show they're rich. And their faces were never shown. And I don't think they ever spoke, but the 13-year-old talked to the parents while the other children were holding a baby, who they were told was their new sibling, Jane. The youngest, Micah, immediately doesn't like the baby, calling her a plain Jane, hence the episode title. Clever production studio people. They spend the whole episode trying to find ways to get rid of the baby so they can all talk about ways that the baby could leave. The whole time, you could actually see Big Sis arguing with the parents in the background. The whole thing animated, which I always found so cool to this day. Props to the animators. The episode ended with the kids about to leave Jane in the woods near the house, but is stopped by Big Sis before they do. The parents driving away quickly. I'm unsure why the parents weren't there or not watching any of their kids, and I always felt weird after watching this episode. But it was the very last episode. It always scared me as a kid, and it's where I think I got my fear of abandonment. And the cartoon only had 8 episodes. Then, like every other typical creepy cartoon, it got canceled. The last episode title was just the name of the show, House of Children. This episode starts like any other, and the kids are doing their normal chores, playing and whatnot. The problem this episode was that Megan got lost in the woods. Everyone is freaking out and wanting to look for her, but Big Sis tells them no, going into the woods, or they'd all get lost. The whole thing is getting to an all-time high until Micah suggests to call the cops. Every other sibling just looks so uncomfortable at the suggestion, and they tell him no. Now that I'm older, I think it's because they were literal children living alone. Because everyone wanted to go into the woods, Big Sis locks all the doors to keep the kids inside. The episode after just felt so unnerving because everyone seems so anxious and upset. One of them even started pulling out their hair in worry. The episode gets to this boiling point when Big Sis finally does unlock the doors. The children all run out to the woods, leaving Big Sis, Micah, who was scared, so he stayed, and Baby Jane from the last episode. Big Sis sighs and brings Micah inside, finally calling the police. Micah's asking why she's not looking for all their siblings, and she just states, "I don't honestly care all that much." And with that, the episode ended. And every time I watched this episode, I would start crying and running to my mom or grandma, yelling, "Please care about me," like some dumb kid. I was a dumb kid. Sadly, I haven't watched this show in years due to my grandparents moving to Texas and selling all their VHS tapes, but yeah, that still creeps me out to this day. Hey there, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much. Again, thank you for listening. And a huge thank you to the authors, TheHappyTruth and AK_lore, for letting me use their stories. And also, another huge, big, fat, juicy thank you to the authors that have given me permission to read stories that haven't been put out yet. So thank you. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves, because the world needs you. And as always, if you've written a lot of words that you'd like to hear come out of my throat, just hit me up. I'm here for it. Thanks again.